Hare Krishna, dear devotees, we are reading from 3rd Canto, 26th chapter, verse 39. No need. Dravya kriti... Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dravya krititvam gunata. Vyakti samstatvam evacha. Tejastvam tejasah sadvi. Rupa matrasya vrittayaha. Dravya krititvam gunata. Vyakti samstatvam evacha. Tejastvam tejasah sadvi. Rupa matrasya vrittayaha. Dravya krititam gunata. Vyakti samstatvam evacha. Tejastvam tejasah sadvi. Rupa matrasya vrittayaha. Dravya krititvam gunata. Vyakti samstatvam. Tejasam. Mataji.
Dravya krititvam gunata. Vyakti samstatvam evacha. Tejasvam tejasah sadvi.
Tejastvam tejasah.
Rupa matrasya vrittayaha.
Rupa matrasya. Dravya of an object. Akrititvam, dimension. Gunata, quality. Vyakti samstatvam, individuality. Eva, also. Cha, and. Tejastvam, effulgence. Tejasah, or fire. Sadvi, or virtuous lady. Rupa matrasya, of the subtle element form. Vrittayaha, the characteristics. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. My dear mother, the characteristic of form are understood by dimension, quality, and individuality. The form of fire is appreciated by its effulgence. Purport. Every form that we appreciate has its particular dimensions and characteristics. The quality of a particular object is appreciated by its utility, but the form of sound is independent. Forms which are invisible can be understood only by touch. That is the independent appreciation of invisible form. Visible forms are understood by analytical study of their constitution. The constitution of a certain object is appreciated but by its eternal action. For example, the form of salt is appreciated by the interaction of salty tastes, and the form of sugar is appreciated by the interaction of sweet tastes. Tastes and qualitative constitution are the basic principles in understanding the form of an object. Dravyakritattvam gunatva vyaktisam tattvam eva cha tejastvam tejasaksadvi rupamatrasya vritayaha. My dear mother, the characteristic of form are understood by dimension, quality, and individuality. The form of fire is appreciated by its effulgence. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in this verse, we continue the verses in 26th chapter. Who said, my dear mother? Kapila Dev Muni, who is incarnation of God, his Vishnu Tattva. So he said to his mother, who is his mother, Devahuti. Usually it is not advisable to preach to your mother unless there is some special lady like this Mataji in Templorum. But usually it's not advisable because your mother will say, I know you when you are in diapers. What are you talking now to me, you know? And we all, as young devotees, sometimes, especially at the beginning, out of our ignorance to give mother treasure which we have, we try to preach to our mother or relatives, but usually just counter effect is occurred. Out of that, for example, also Jesus Christ said, don't preach to your village. Because in your village, people know you, and they know you from the beginning, and then they know you when you had anarthas, some anarthas, which you do not have anymore. And they cannot listen to you because they are attached to this picture of you, which they were present in, that was present in the past. That's why I ran away in Germany. Just not to preach in Croatia, because in Croatia they all know how I'm a rascal. But here I'm asked to give lecture. So it's not advisable unless the mother asks you. I remember when I heard the lecture of Indradyumna Swami, he said that his mother was like typical materialistic person who liked to enjoy life. And he never preached to her. He's sannyasi, top most liberated jiva, but he never preached to her. Because that's his mother. So how he preached her? By his example. And that's the advice how we should preach to our close relatives also, unless we are asked. So he later explained how his mother got the cancer. And in that time when she got the cancer, he was established as a preacher in ISKCON and had his tape ministry. So he didn't know, but mother ordered to listen his lectures. So mother listened his lectures, and then just at the end of the life, she also made some notes, questions what wasn't clear to her, and he started actually to be devotee. And he didn't really, either he realized just before he left the body or after, I cannot remember. But he praised this process, how this process is powerful, and how even such materialistic person like his mother became devotee at the end of life. But usually it's advised just to preach by your example. Just 2 days ago was Vito's mother here in the temple room. And we know Bhakta Vito from the last year, because we are also coming regularly 1-2 week on Simhachalam. So more or less we know 80% of devotees from previously. And we saw also in comparison with last year how Vito is developing more and more in responsible person. So we know him at least something. So I said to my wife, because my wife can speak German, I said, you can approach to Vito's mother and say something about Vito. So my wife went to his mother and said a few things. She glorified the devotee, how he became a responsible person, how he always in kitchen asked and want to learn new things. And mother was in complete ecstasy. Yeah? That was preaching to Vito's mother. But unless we ask, we shouldn't preach to our mother. But this mother, Devahuti, was a special mother because she asked her son, Kardama Muni, that can you say me how to disentangle Kapila? What I said? Kapila Muni. Oh, thank you for you are listening my lecture. So he asked her son, Kapila Dev, and she admitted to him, I'm so entangled. Please, could you preach me? Could you tell me how to disentangle from this world? And that was sign how she was a great personality. She admitted, I am entangled. Actually, she had a lot of sons and daughters. Actually, one son and how many daughters? 9 daughters. Because when her husband, Kardama Muni, wanted to take sannyas, she said, but I do not have any male progeny. I don't have a son. So he said, okay, I will give you son, and then I will went and take sannyas. So when she got the son, he took sannyas, and then she left with 10 children. And she was entangled in this grihastha life, and she was aware of that. And she asked, what is the best process of yoga? And then Kardama Muni started to preach her, just because he was asked. And she said, first of all, yoga means to connect. So yoga is the same, actually, thing as religion. Religare means, in Latin language, to connect again. Re means again. And yoga means the same, to connect with the God. And how to connect with God? First, you have to disentangle from this material bondage. And he also explained that how we can disentangle. We can attach ourselves to devotees. For he glorified devotees. He said that devotees are titikshava karunika, full of mercy and tolerant. He said also that devotee doesn't want mukti, liberation, that he doesn't want siddhi. Devotees do not want siddhis. So he first glorified this part of Bhakti Yoga, but he said, actually for you the best is Sankhya Yoga, because that was also Satya Yoga. Satya Yoga is the yoga, or how you say, time, where there were not 4 divisions in the society. There were not Brahmanas, there were not Kshatriyas, Shudra or Vaishnava. All people, Bhagavatam described, were pure devotees, actually, on the level of pure devotees. And later in Dvapara Yuga, society is divided, and then in society we find mostly Brahmanas. Then in Treta, is first Treta or Dvapara, I'm always changing. After Satya is Treta or Dvapara? Treta. So in Treta is mostly Brahmanas. Then in Dvapara are mostly Kshatriya and Brahmanas. And in Kali Yuga are mostly Shudras. But this Satya or Krida Yuga, the, the process for how to connect with God was actually meditation. In Kali Yuga is Sankirtan. When it's Satya Yuga was meditation, and people were naturally prone to austerity, inclined to austerity. So he said, but for you the best process is Sankhya Yoga. And actually in this 26th chapter he started to explain what is the Sankhya Yoga. So the essence of this Sankhya Yoga is analytical study of material nature in order how to disattach or disentangle ourselves from its bondage. And second is how to fix mind on Paramatma, how attached ourselves to Paramatma. So this disentangle from material nature through the analytical study and fix mind to Paramatma. And in order to explain her what this material nature is about, he started to explain different elements of this material nature. So he said, actually, there are 25 elements of this material nature. There are 5 gross material elements. There are 5 subtle elements. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge. There are 5 senses for acting in this material world. Then we have 3 subtle elements like mind, intelligence, and false ego. This is 23. So the 24th is contaminated consciousness, and 25th is time. Time is a representative of Krishna. So these 25 elements, material nature consists of these 25 elements, and according to some Sankhya philosophers, there are also 26 elements, which is Paramatma, because these 25 elements are in harmony by the action of, by the help of Paramatma. And he explained here how everything evolves. So in previous stick he said that, in previous verse, he said that through the action of air and senses of touch, the form develops. And in this verse he said this form can be understood by dimension, or quality, or individuality. So dimension means you can see the form. But Prabhupada explained also that it's not so easy because material nature is complicated. In some cases, the vision is not, dimension is not enough. You have to see quality and individuality. And he gives example of this salt and sugar. Salt and sugar, they have very similar structure, small crystals. And it's very difficult to understand what is what if you do not touch. I have one friend, old Mataji, and her vision is not so clear, good. She is wearing glasses thick like ashtrays, and she was a cook. So one time when Sankirtan devotee came from the Sankirtan, she hosted them in her house, and she wanted to give them prasad. So she first served sabji, and after sabji she served halava with bananas. If you want that, regarding this verse, we are talking about the form. If you want that these bananas have form in halava, you have to put it practically at the end of cooking. If you put them immediately, they will lose form, and the halva will become sour. So she did it very nicely, and when she served that after the sabji, then she saw the faces of few Sankirtan devotees, and then they spit it out, this halva which was already in the mouth. And this is the worst nightmare of every cook. We had similar experience, me and my wife, in cooking, and we made a blunder one year in Simhachalan kitchen. Somehow Krishna helped. So what she did, she instead of sugar, she put salt in halwa, and then halwa wasn't eatable. Yeah, like that. So in some cases it will not be clear just by vision. Okay, in this case you can see difference between salt and sugar if you look very precisely. But in some cases it will not be like that. For example, if you have crystals of what we talked yesterday, magnesium, and crystal of salt is practically the same. But the quality is different, individuality is different, because if you put salt on fire, nothing will happen. But if you put magnesium on fire, it will be explosion. So don't put crystal magnesium in the kitchen. Like that. My wife forbid me to talk about heroin. But actually heroin, if you have powder, sugar powder and heroin, it's practically the same. And there is one lila, I remember, with heroin. So on the first Yatra, it's not widespread information, I found it. So on the first Ratha Yatra in San Francisco, Prabhupada was exhibited pastime of sickness, and he wasn't there. He was in the flat in San Francisco somewhere on the coast. And the devotees went and they had first Ratha Yatra, and after Yatra, when we are on the way back to their flats, some Matajis, I think Malati or Yamuna, started to laugh uncontrollably. And she said, "Do you see, this world became completely red?" And then some other Mataji said, "It's not red, it's a reddish." Another male devotee said, "No, it's not. What happened?" Actually, what happened, then they went, those who were able to walk, they went to Prabhupada and they talked how the Ratha was successful, and in one moment truck stopped and then they tried to ignite the engine and it wasn't so easy. And then Prabhupada also asked, Jai Lakshmi Praladni Sinhadevaki Jai. So at the end, Prabhupada asked, "But where is that Mataji?" And then they explained that actually on the coast, when the Ratha Yatra was practically over, hippies were participants of this Ratha Yatra, so they distributed some candies. And inside the candies was white powder. You can imagine what was inside. And Prabhupada concluded that's why devotees shouldn't eat outside. We should just eat in our temples. That was also very important instruction, actually. And I am always grateful to those devotees who were corrected by Prabhupada, because we can learn so much from this correction. I remember when I saw these Prabhupada memories. In Prabhupada memories was one Indian devotee, and he told us several occasions how he was corrected by Prabhupada. And he was laughing every time when he was talking about this type, completely without false ego. And then Swamiji corrected me like this and said, "You can kill yourself with this knife," because he took the knife and tried to remove some impurities on the floor. And Prabhupada said, "You can take this knife and kill yourself. This is not proper tool for cleaning the floor." Like that. And he was laughing. I was so thankful for such devotees who were corrected by Prabhupada. Because devotee, he doesn't like to be praised, actually. And he likes to be corrected. Because we are all an ocean of mercy, or ocean of mistakes. If you look Karmi world, Karmi likes to be praised, and Karmi doesn't like. Don't criticize Karmi. But devotees is just opposite. His heart is humble. So Prabhupada corrected these devotees, and we can learn a lot from these instances like that. And what do I say? So in some cases it is not clear what, and Prabhupada explains how sugar is appreciated by its taste. I remember one also incident just now, before we came to Germany, I was talking with my neighbor. He's also a devotee, and his son. I talked with his son, who is like 9 years old, and he went to some excursion, means going on the coast 2-3 days with his classmates and teacher. And he said, I didn't want to eat in restaurant because previously, before this trip, I said to my father said to my teacher that we are vegetarian, and they serve me these seashells on my plate. So he was clever enough. He said, we do not eat this, because if you said to others that we are vegetarians, they do not understand in detail. And actually, we are not vegetarians. We are Krishnatarians. We like to eat just what Krishna eats, and in some cases it includes also some vegetables like onion and like that. So when I first saw this verse, I was thinking, oh my God, what I will talk about. It's a really difficult verse. Actually, all these series of verses about Sankhya Yoga are difficult verses, because we are not completely in that process, and we do not have analytical mind. And so what I will talk about, if you gave me this verse out of a blue, suddenly say what you can say, it's very difficult to say anything about this Sankhya. But then just yesterday I read the Krishna Kaviraj Swami said, I do not know how these pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how much they are depth. I know just surface. And I'm talking about these pastimes just superficially to you. So out of his humility. And I have to admit, this is not out of my humility, but these verses about Sankhya Yoga, they are really difficult. It's not easy to understand their depth. And then I thought for myself, because I had one similar situation when I said that one verse is difficult, so my friend immediately criticized me and said, how you can say that? This is verse from Prabhupada. Whatever Prabhupada gave, it's nectar. How you can say that it's difficult? I was corrected like that, and I was thinking a lot about this correction, because it doesn't seem to me right, because I have to admit for myself, some verses are more easy for me and some are more difficult. Is this wrong? Then I remember also, Sutta Goswami said that this Bhagavatam is like completely ripe fruit. He said in third verse, 113, Nigamat kalpatar or galita palam. Galita means completely ripe, completely mature. Galita palam. So if something is completely ripe, then every part of this fruit is completely tasty. And how is that I find some verses difficult and some verses are more easy? Then I ponder again more deeply about that. Is this my fault or what's happening now? I find myself in some conundrum. How is that this? I can say that this is difficult if Shukadev Goswami said that this is all nectar. If you want to eat some fruits, and if there is, for example, cherries, there are so many cherries outside. And when cherries started to became ripe, became mature, some part, this part which looks on sunshine, on east, it become reddish. And this other part is still green. And this reddish part is more tasty than this green part. But if the cherry is completely ripe, then all cherry is completely tasty. So is it then aparadha to say that some verse is difficult? So I found then in Bhagavatam how Prabhupada in 4th chapter described just similar to this process of evolution of material elements. So he found how verses I found how Prithu Maharaj left the body. Prithu Maharaj was descendant of Uttanapada, who was son of Satyabhuva Manu, first Manu in our day, in Brahma's day. And then he primijeniti, kako se kaže? He applied the same principle as here, but just roundabout, just in opposite direction. When it is described when he became old, first of all, it was shocking for me. Then I read that when he understood that he is getting older, he became happy. It's written, and I was shocked because that's just another perspective, you know. Usually, people became morose when they are getting older. But Prithu Maharaj became happy, and he accelerated his process of death, his death, by Sankhya Yoga. Actually, by Ashtanga Yoga, but also by devolution. So it is said that he merged his senses with the air. I have written it's also difficult. So this process of devolution, just opposite. But the process of Kundalini Yoga with some mukta asana, means asana posture for the getting liberation. It is said that he merged bodily liquors with water, that he merged his senses with the sky, that he merged his body with the earth, and that he merged his mind with the senses and merged his senses with the sense objects. It's just going opposite. So he merged false ego with Mahatattva, and he merged or amalgamated, it is said in the verse, earth with water, water with fire, fire with air, air with the ether. It's going just in opposite direction. So he accelerated this process of death. He immediately attained this level of Brahma Bhuta, completely happy level. He elevated his chakra from Muladhara chakra down to the sixth chakra. The sixth chakra is Agya chakra, and then his soul left the body through Randra, Brahmarandra. And it's very interesting that Prabhupada, last verse of this process, in last purport, he said, and just because he knew this process of Kundalini Yoga before, because later he was completely on the pure level of pure devotee, but just because he knew this process before this, his elevated stage, he just used that to accelerate his death and to come as quickly as possible to this Brahma Bhuta level. But Prabhupada said this is not needed for devotees because devotees are already on Brahma Bhuta Prasanatmana Shochatina Kankshati level. And Prabhupada said, and devotees should have to know that we have just chant Hare Krishna, and this is the way how we will attain peaceful of mind. And Prabhupada said, and this is the meaning of this difficult verse. And when I read this, Prabhupada also admitted that this verse was difficult. And when I listened 3-4 days ago, Akila Prabhu lectures, he also said on lecture, oh, these verses are very difficult, you know. So we should know that yes, there are some parts which are more difficult, there are some parts which are less difficult. And then how it is that Shukadev Goswami said it's ripe, completely ripe? Because for him is not difficult. And this is, dear devotees, the way of self-realization. We have to admit to ourselves where we are actually. It is not embarrassing to accept, yes, maybe it is written that association of devotees is most pressure thing in Bhakti Yoga. But sometimes for me it's so difficult to associate with other devotees. Okay, Rupa Goswami said this is most important anga out of 5 angas. He said in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that the 5 most important angas are listen to Bhagavatam, chanting Hare Krishna, living in maternal holy place, associating with devotees, and worshipping the deities. And out of 5 these angas, the most important is association with devotees. But for me, sometimes it's very difficult. It is written that the Sankirtan is the pure ecstasy, but I have to admit I'm not on that level now. And for me, sometimes it's suffering. If we are honest with ourselves in such a way, then Krishna will help us how to overcome this level. But that means we have to be honest with ourselves. Admit first to ourselves, yes, I have a problem. How I will overcome this problem? Because Devahuti also had a problem, and she admitted to her son, I have a problem. I am completely entangled in this material world. If we are I saw also that some devotees, they are not even honest with themselves. And they said, I'm on the way to engaged, but I'm not attached to her. And they already have in mind person who they want. I'm not attached. And then they saw the car, which is the same as this Mataji, also have the same Volkswagen, and immediately, she had also that. But I'm not attached. We have to be first honest with ourselves, because if we are not honest, problem will occur. I remember one pastime, Prabhupada had a servant, his name was Purushottama. And Purushottama had a problem, and nobody knew. What was the problem? He was in late 60s, Prabhupada servant. And it was the time when the man landed on the moon. And he was watching television, and it was big fuss in America and all over the world. For the first time in history, we are going on the moon. And we will succeed this time. And he was also naturally in this. And we are also in this material world, sometimes we are also, we also heard about this election, who will win. Actually, this is not so important for our spiritual life. But sometimes it's difficult to be out of this, because everyone talks about that. We have to be aware. I remember Indradyumna Swami said, I'm going to Vrindavan, and some devotee asked me who will win in America, Trump or who was, Biden. This is not talk which is supposed to be talked in Vrindavan. But sometimes, as I said, he was also into it. And we have a problem because we are conditioned by Western culture. Whatever we are taught in our childhood, whatever we heard in newspaper or television, it's true. Now it's a little bit shaken because people are now a little more aware of these lies. But in those days, people were completely, they have belief in scientists. Prabhupada practically first in the world who shake their position of scientists. And then on the other side was Prabhupada, who was laughing. They think they didn't went to the moon. Actually, Prabhupada, in his books, he didn't say clearly, I think. He said, I doubt it. But in personal conversation, he said they were not on the moon. So, from my perspective, for me, it's not so important if the Neil Armstrong was on the moon or not. What does that have with my life? I don't care, actually. But for this Purushottama, it became big doubt. Because his guru said that we were not on the moon. And I see with my eyes they were landing on the moon. Should I be stupid? Should I be blind follower of my guru? And he started to doubt. Doubt in his words of his guru. And this doubt festered in his heart. You know the word fester. Fester means when you have a wound and you are not dealing, you neglect that wound, and then became pus and that oozing pus. So that doubt festered in his heart, and just one day he left the movement, he left the Prabhupada. Such insignificant actually thing, if we were or if we were not on the moon. But he let that doubt to fester, to grow. And Tamal Krishna Goswami explained why he fell down. Because he wasn't honest with himself, and he wasn't confiding in friend. You know, we have to have friends in Krishna consciousness, whom we will tell, look, I have a problem. And it's good if this is not just someone who will cry on his shoulder, but who will give you valuable advice, who will be a little bit advanced than you. And then he can preach to you. And then you will see this is insignificant doubt. And Rupa Goswami explains this process is very scientifical. He explains Dadati Pratigrinati, how we should deal with devotees, how we should have exchanges with devotees. He said 6 things. I should give you present, you should give me present. This is 2 things, how we will exchange love. Then 3rd thing, I should give you prasad, you should give me prasad. This is 3rd and 4th. I remember at Sikhachalam few years back, years ago, here was, how was the name of this Ajata? This Ambujata. Ambujata was here, and he didn't like sweets. He liked pakoras. I remember one year devotee, instead of for his birthday, instead of some cake as we usually do, they made a huge pile of pakoras. That was a present for him, and he was in completely ecstasy. And I also took some pakoras and went to his room, and because I do not know German, I asked my sons, they know on some level, this is present for you. And this younger one, who was even younger at that time, he said, I said, how I will say in German, this is present for you? Because Ambujata didn't know even word of English. I do not know even word of German. I know 2 words of German. The most important, nichts verstehen. So my youngest said something like, Happy Geburtstag. And I said, instead of this is present for you, I said to him, happy birthday. And he was completely confused. I was completely confused, and my sons, they were laughing like anything because they fooled me. This is 3rd and 4th things. But the 5th and 6th things are so important. That means you have to listen what others have to say to you confidentially, and you have to confidentially reveal your mind to your friend. And this is scientific process. If we do not do like this, then we will have a problem. You can make a halava, but if you take, instead of samolina, some flour, some chickpea flour or some ordinary flour, white flour, then you will say, this halava is not good. And then I will ask you, but how much semolina you put in your halava? And you say, I didn't use semolina. This is not halava. This is something else. You mix something, you speculated something. You cannot make halava without semolina. Similarly is this process. If we do not apply these principles which Acharya gave us then we will have a problem. Then we will put that some doubt fester in our heart, and then we will blame the movement, and this process doesn't work. But actually we speculated. And that's why it's important our association with devotees. And when we associate like that with devotees who really thinks that each verse of Bhagavatam are pure nectar, then one day we will come on that level. Because this is contagious disease. This Bhakti Yoga is contagious disease, and we will become affected in positive sense of this sentence, in positive means. So we have to be just honest. Because we have to admit to ourselves, we are in disease condition. And if you give me sugar and I am suffering from jaundice, this is not sweet for me. But I have to have confidence. Actually, this is sugar and this is sweet. And Acharya said this is sweet. But just because I am conditioned, I am diseased, maybe in this moment I feel just opposite. But if I will be persistent in this process, then I will also feel ecstasy. And then I will not fanatically say to other, every verse is pure nectar. Because some verses are more, some verses or some pastimes is not so easy to digest. Just 2 days ago I read this story about Chota Haridas, and not so easy to digest. How Chaitanya was firm with this Chota Haridas. And due course of time, for sure, you will find also in this process some things which even your guru will say it will not be easy to accept for ourselves. But we have to admit ourselves, we are in disease condition. What Arjuna said in Bhagavad Gita, aparam bhavata janma, param janma vivasvataha. Katam etad vijaniyam tvamado proktavanitam. He said, katam etad vijaniyam. How am I to understand? He didn't say to Krishna, you are talking nonsense. You are talking contradictory things. No, he said, how am I to understand? What's wrong with me? Why I do not understand your instruction? It seems to me like contradictory, but problem is in me. And that's the solution. We have to admit ourselves that sometimes we find something difficult, either some instruction, either some verses. But we have to, our position, star position have to be, that's because of me. That's not because the things are like I momentarily see them. That's because of my conditioned life. And we have chosen words to express our doubts. And if we do like that, Krishna will help us. But we have to be humble in our heart. And then there is no problem on this process. If we stay humble, we will not have problem. We will have problem just if we become puffed up, and then we can cut our neck on this narrow path. It is said in Shastra that spiritual path is like a narrow path on the blade of razor. But if we stay humble, even this narrow path will be wide. And because Krishna will guide us, devotees will guide us. And we will find ages, we will find shelter of all the devotees. So for sure, I'm not so qualified to talk about this verse. If you ask me what is the difference between pradhana, prakriti, mahatattva, for sure I will not know. But whatever little realization I had, I said something, so you are welcome if you have some rotten tomatoes. Comments or questions? Okay, if not, thank you for your attention. Simchat Shalom Dam Ki Jai.